Welcome to Prompt and Circumstance, where four seasoned business leaders pull up to the round table and riff on the wild world of AI. It's human-friendly banter about code, culture, and CEO reality checks. Served up by Mike Richardson, Ryan Neiman, Mark Redgrave, and Tom Adams. No jargon, no hype, just real talk from four guys who've seen it all and aren't afraid to say what everyone's thinking. Pull up a chair, let's get into it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Prompt and Circumstance podcast. We are so delighted to have you all here. We are most delighted to have our special guest today here, Marvin Dejean. Welcome, Marvin.
Hey guys, thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Don't thank us yet.
Those of you watching on video will immediately notice that Ryan Neiman is not here today. He's off on some kind of secret mission. I think that's right. Because he's a kind of James Bond 007 kind of character. He even looks a little bit like Daniel Craig, doesn't he, really? He's off doing some kind of secret mission somewhere, but he'll be back next time. I'm back. I wasn't here last time. You know, I think every podcast needs a loudmouth. So, you know, I'm back to play my part, and I'll be hosting this time. And we're looking forward to being with each other. We always start the same way. We've got the marvelous Mark Redgrave here. We've got the terrific Tom Adams here. We always start the same way. Marvin, please join in, and then we'll introduce you a little bit more, Marvin. What have you seen? What have you noticed? What have you heard over the last week or couple of weeks since the last podcast, or maybe even over the last month or couple of months? What have you seen sort of brewing up more and more clearly, or more and more loudly? Tom Adams, we'll come to you first. What have you been noticing in the last period of time?
Well, I think one of the big, there's a couple things, but one of the big things for me is OpenAI dropped their Atlas browser in the last little bit. And that's both a interesting addition to their complex mix of integrating toolkit, not just into their chatbot, but adding that as a extra, along with what was sort of brewing underneath the surface was all of the agentic stuff sort of built into their chat tool, their desktop chat tool. So, I think that's a really interesting thing. Obviously, Perplexity had done that with their Comet browser, and there's a Dia browser, which came out of the browser company. So there's a number of different browsers that are playing now in the space, because browsers are where a lot of people live. So I think it's another layer of connection to where people spend their times, not just now in chatbots, but in actually their browsers doing things as they're on the web in their toolkit, because most of our toolkit now lives online. So that to me is an interesting next step. Yep.
All right. What was it called again? What was the new browser called?
The new browser from OpenAI is called Atlas.
Atlas. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, look out for that, everybody. Go check it out. Mark, what have you been noticing?
So I found something out like a couple of weeks ago, which like blew my mind, but I'm late to this. So like, if people already know this, but this took my brain out a couple of weeks ago, right? And this is the story I read. So back in May 25, Moderna, who are a US-based drug company, made famous during COVID, right? They made a decision to roll the IT organization, under the HR organization. Okay, dramatic pause. Right. So, and when I read the article, it was in the Wall Street Journal, great article, but they're like, look, the future of our organization is in a combined human and agentic, like our resources are going to be increasingly digital, right? So they put a lady called Tracy Franklin, and her role became the Chief People and Digital Technology Officer. The whole IT organization tees up to her. And that honestly, I was like, okay, that is a number one, super bold move. And I love bold moves. Like, you know, like if you want to change shit, right? And the second thing is, it's like as a signal, as if it made, I think it made the whole world go, oh my goodness! Like we like.
What was her name? What was her name again, Mark? Tracy what?
Her name's Tracy Franklin.
All right, Tracy. So look, Tracy, if you're listening, which you probably are, because this podcast is getting a lot of traction. Everybody,
Goes everywhere.
Tracy, if you're listening, please give us a call. We'd love to have you on the podcast and find out more about all of that.
Yeah, amazing, though, right?
By the way.
Amazing. And
Fascinating.
when I tell that story to people, you can see everyone kind of go. They take a little bit of a sharp intake of breath and go, "Holy crap! Like things are changing." So yeah, I thought it was interesting.
Talking about listeners, I will give a shout out to Michael van Asselt. I was at a networking thing probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I know Michael. He's on a mentoring program that I facilitate for aspiring board members to get on boards. And he came up to me and said, "Hey, in episode 3, you guys mentioned this. Where do I find that again?" And I love the podcast. So we've at least got one listener. Well, now 2 with Tracy.
Right.
So we're doing well so far. Marvin, what have you been noticing over the last few weeks of your journey?
Well, these are all fascinating finds, but just like Tom, to piggyback on what Tom was saying, what I'm starting to see in terms of trends and also what I'm reading about is how, for example, OpenAI is now starting to embed commercial elements inside the browser itself. So you can Walmart and I think Amazon and a few others. Now you don't need to leave, ChatGPT to start shopping. So I think OpenAI has a very specific strategic plan in mind of keeping you on their ecosystem. So you're not, saying, hey, you talk to ChatGPT and then you have to go on Google or go to Amazon to actually buy something. You can actually now start the commercial process or the buying process on their browser itself. So I think they're definitely building an ecosystem where they want everybody to stay on there, and they're shoring up to go against the Googles and the Amazons of the world, which is very an interesting strategic move.
I think PayPal announced a deal this week to be the payment processing partner. I think
exactly. So you see the move. It's like they're putting the pieces together and building that ecosystem, that commercial ecosystem.
A new world order, everybody, is taking shape real time before our eyes here.
It's going to be
for me.
Interesting.
About 2 weeks ago, we were launching a new forum in San Diego, an in-person event, and we had a fantastic speaker called Riley Strickland from a company called Cadre AI. And I've got him booked to come and join us here on the podcast in December, which we're looking forward to. I've seen a lot of AI speakers. I haven't seen you recently, Marvin. I look forward to doing that. But I've seen a lot of AI speakers recently, both virtually and in person. He knocked it out of the park, the best I've seen so far. Nice. And his company called Cadre.
Thank you.
Oh, well, yeah, sorry, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Chopped liver, obviously.
Tom came and spoke a couple of months ago.
Best he's ever seen.
It's all on the trajectory,
he says that to everybody pretty much. Like he told me I was the best he'd ever seen.
No, to be fair though,
Anyway.
Tom, to be fair, we said we'd be honest, right? But like Mike, not that honest. Like G.
Okay, right, yeah. Okay, yeah. Anyway, back to where we were. And Cadre AI is rather like those outsourced accounting companies where they will provide you a fractional team of AI implementers. And he said they normally put teams of 5 together, and they, come in and do an initial sort of 90-day assessment of where's the, low-hanging fruit, the medium-hanging fruit, the high-hanging fruit. And then they, start to engage in the prioritized implementation of those things and make it happen. And so, in terms of having, in the trenches, on the ground, use cases and case studies of real stuff being deployed, he's just got a font of great stuff. So we look forward to having him. But right now we have Marvin Dejean, and Marvin is the senior managing partner of Gilead Sanders. He started with them as a consultant, then became the managing partner, and now is a senior managing partner. And Marvin, you and I first met, I'm a bit vague, but I think at least 10, if not 15 years ago, when
Yep.
we were in the same keynote speaking agency, and they got us together one time to kind of meet each other and begin fermenting stuff.
Yep.
And we naturally hit it off around agility and digital transformation. And we'll find out more about where Marvin's from and where he's headed and all of that. But we know that Marvin is of Haitian descent, with parents from Haiti. And he got a project with one of the major banks there, Bank, and went there many times. And a couple of times, or maybe even 3 times, took me. And we went off to a fantastic resort with the bank team, and we facilitated 2 or 3 day events together. It was an absolute blast. It's great to have you here, Marvin. So tell us a little bit about Marvin. How did you get to where you are now? What was your career, and bring us forward to what are you doing now around AI in particular?
Yeah, sure. So, Mike, interestingly enough, that you were mentioning our time in Haiti and Sojibank, I just, for some strange reason, you know how your computer sometimes brings up pictures that you took, and I saw pictures of us in the resort doing the training, and I was like, my God, that was actually like, what, 12, 13 years ago? Where did the time go? But even then, right? It was the same thing for me. My journey has been in a previous life. I can't even remember anymore. I was did a lot of communications, marketing, government relations sort of person, and worked for a company, an IT company, and sort of really started getting exposed to a lot of the technologies of the time. And back then, cloud was just at the burgeoning stages. But in
Yep.
talking to more and more people, I started realizing they were talking about things that were coming down the pike. People started talking about artificial intelligence back then, and that was still in the fringes. I don't think, Jeffrey Ree Hinton was probably still working on neural networks at this time, but it just caught my attention. And more, I started, going down this rabbit hole, and I'm realizing, wait a minute, this technology is not only going to be game changing, but it's going to change everything as we know it.
Yep.
The way we run
Yep.
business, societies. And the more I got deeper into it, the more it just became fascinating to me. And I realized, okay, this is something that business owners are going to need to start understanding. And the more that I gained knowledge, the more I went into some training and understanding what was about to happen. I got on the speaking circuit, started talking about, AI, started talking about blockchain and these things coming. And I would go to these talks, and unlike what you just mentioned, Mike, it wasn't applause. People were like, it was crickets. People were like, what is this guy talking about? AI? What is that? What is this guy? This guy's been drinking a little too much Kool-Aid, watching too much Star Trek. So back then it was just like crickets. People had no idea until one day some
And this is back how far, Marvin? This is like 5, 10,
2012,
15 years ago?
2012.
Yeah, there you
This
go.
is 2012.
2012.
I'm talking AI 2012, and people are like, bro, dude, there's more letters to the alphabet than A and in case you hadn't noticed. So I said, okay. And then someone said to me, look, Marvin, listen, the reason that people aren't applauding or scared is because they're scared. You're talking about a future where these technologies are going to automate a lot of the stuff. They don't understand what that means. So it's a good thing that you're talking about the future, but what are you doing to help us get there?
Yeah.
So then,
Yeah.
so that's when I pivoted a little bit and I said, okay, you know what? How could I make Gilead Sanders not just one talking about the future, but what is the strategic roadmap for companies to get there? So fast forward to where I am today, where we talked about digital transformation and creating a strategic roadmap for companies to become what I call intelligent organizations, right? So we're
Yep.
moving away from business models that we've known since the Industrial Revolution to moving, just like you said, moving the technology part from the periphery, from the IT department, to really becoming the engine of the organization itself. So every
Yeah.
company in the 21st century is a digital company with products and services surrounding that ecosystem, but everybody is going to have a
Yeah.
digital company that provides services. So we're just
Yeah.
helping companies better understand what does this new model look like for your people, the technology, the infrastructure, the operation? It's a whole new world. So we're at the nascent stages, and we're sort of a guide, a Sherpa, so to speak, to help them understand that.
Yeah, and you're on the East Coast, right? You're in the Fort Lauderdale area, Miami. And you're, I mean, if you just go to Marvin's, LinkedIn profile, Marvin Dejean, you're doing a lot of stuff, not just locally, but in particular locally, right? You're doing a lot of stuff. So tell us a little bit more about, what's your average day, your average week, your average month look like, Marvin?
Yeah, no. So interestingly enough for us, probably the past 6 months, AI, the momentum has just shifted, really in terms of every conversation we're having is about AI, whether it's how, what do we do with it? How do we implement it? What about our people? What about AI literacy? So, and interestingly enough, yesterday I was conducting a focus group for a group out here called Career Source Broward, and Career Source Broward is sort of like a state, local quasi employment organization. And about maybe 4 or 5 months ago, they came out with an RFP to hire a vendor to help them write an AI playbook for the entire county. So they really want us to write a playbook that helps small to medium-sized businesses understand what AI is, understand what a roadmap looks like, what does a pilot project look like, what should they be looking at, and then really what's the final ROI in implementing AI. So not implementing AI in a FOMO sense, right? Fear of missing out because everybody else is doing AI, but really what is AI really? How do we separate the myth from the fiction? So it was so interesting. We had about 40 to 50 employers around the table, and you're hearing the same thing, right? So people are using ChatGPT, people are using Gemini, they're doing it to review contracts, but they're really using AI sort of like a multitasker, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people, especially medium-sized businesses, are missing the whole entire point of AI, of feeding internal data. It's because their data infrastructure is still in disarray or siloed, right? And AI does not exist without data. If no data, no AI. And I think people are still missing that point, right? They're still thinking AI is ChatGPT. And I'm telling people, look, ChatGPT is a very small part. It's a generative AI, but it's a very small part of machine learning, neural networks and all those things. So if you ask me when I'm spending my time, Mike, I'm spending a lot of time educating people about what AI really is and separating the myth from the fiction. So that we're in the educational phase of this turning page right now.
You know what, Marvin, I had a great conversation yesterday about something you just mentioned, which was this access to data, right? And you know the analogy people are using, which I think is a good one. It's like AI is like a new employee for your company. Start thinking of it like that, right? And people in the room were like, I'm really nervous about uploading data. And the discussion was, well, here's the deal, right? You've got a new employee. What tasks can they do if you don't let them see, like anything, right? So like if you got a new guy in the room who's very capable, right, can learn anything. But if you say, okay, I want you to think about this, but you can't look at this document, you can't look at the sales book. I don't trust you to touch this. It's like they can't do anything. And I thought that was actually a really neat, real world analogy.
You get a new employee, and part of the induction program is you put a blindfold on their eyes.
You can't do anything. Yeah.
You put duct tape across their mouth, and you tie one arm behind their back.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a good little analogy, right? I like that one.
That's right.
So you got, and they said like the outcome of that conversation was, guys, like, we just are going to have to, don't be silly. Don't put like sensitive financial information into it, but you've got to put data into it. Otherwise, like, it's not going to be able to do what you want it to do.
Yeah, and not only that, look, the companies and the organizations that are really getting a good lift about AI are the ones who are creating closed loop systems where you're pulling in those kind of platforms to help you with your intelligence inside the organization. I tell clients all the time, look, the way AI works is that's why we call it intelligent organizations of the future. You want your organization to be intelligent. And intelligent is all about data and information for everybody inside the organization when they need it at the moment of decision making. So if my data is siloed, if I got to call the marketing department or the sales department to figure out before I can move forward, we're living in like the 18th century, right? Where boats took, months or years to get from point A to point B. That's not what we're talking about here. AI has the capacity of giving people information and data and access to insights and intelligence in a matter of seconds. So we're talking about really being able to have an intelligence, being able to tap. Mike, you and I used to talk about this a lot, the collective intelligence of
Yep.
everyone inside the organization at the moment of decision. How powerful do you get? So, instead of just thinking it's Chat GPT and Gemini or Claude, is taking those platforms and putting them as the engine inside the data and intelligence inside the organization so that everybody has it at the moment of decision based on levels of access. But I'm not busy calling Tom to say, hey Tom, can you give me the sales figures for
Right.
last quarter? No, that's the competition has already eaten your lunch, right? So you better
Yeah.
have that information right here, right now, when the client
Yeah.
wants it or when that decision needs to be made.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is that depending on the what you're coming into the world now with in terms of data, and so smaller businesses have tended to rely on third-party SaaS tools to really support data, and that data is hidden a lot of times. There's no API access into it. And then there's, larger organizations, a lot of times who we're talking in mid-market tend to have a much more robust understanding of how to access their data, how to get to it. But I think the challenge sometimes is that if your data set isn't even accessible, like you're fighting this other battle. And so a lot of times what you're forced to do is rely on generative as opposed to agentic, which is touching data, but you have to have access to data that's touchable. And I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago who's actually extracting data from closed systems, putting it in things like Airtable in order to run agentic AI on data because they can't access it in their software systems that run their business. And to me, that's what's happening right now is this evolution, because even accessing data is challenging depending on who your software vendors are, your SaaS vendors are from the last 10 years.
I had another speaker about 2 weeks after the previous one that I mentioned, and his name is Peter O'Sullivan. He has a business called High Beam Analytics, and his whole thing is exactly this. It's the data aspect of AI.
That's right.
And he came in and just educated people about what is the data lake and the data warehouse and the inputs and the outputs and all of this kind of stuff that you've got to have in place. How do you put that plumbing in place, as it were?
That's right.
And I afterwards I was coaching him a little bit on how to take his game to yet an even better level. And I said, you really need an opening visual that picks up on the metaphor of your business, High Beam. And so I went to ChatGPT, and just in 15 seconds, please give me a visual of a vehicle driving through a dark forest in the fog with its high beams up, and out of the fog is emerging the word data in capital letters.
Nice.
And there it was. It was a thing of beauty, and I sent it to him, and I said, there you go, something like that.
That's exactly it. Mike,
Yeah.
I was talking when I talked to CEOs, I said, look, when you're talking about AI, are you talking about using it as a tricycle or do you want a Schwinn bike? That's the difference between using generative AI, that's out of the box, the open AIs or, taking them as an engine and then really using the data. Once you release the data inside your business, that information lake, that single source of truth,
Yeah.
it's like taking putting bolting on a rocket ship to your business and then turning it on. That is going to be the difference between the companies that succeed in the next 10 years and the ones who just disappear out of the ether. Because your internal data combined with the intelligence of these, AI machines, that's what's going to give you the leverage that nobody else has. But if you keep on just thinking that AI is just, chat GPT, you're missing the whole point of what's going on here.
Great point.
I'm thinking about the browser comment from a few minutes ago, right? So like, this is very clear to me that whereas today, right? Just again, another analogy, right? If you're anything like me, you are sat here with 30 tabs open, right? And loads of applications, right? And what we do is we move between applications, right? What will clearly happen in the future, and of this there can be no debate, is we will work from an AI interface, right? All the integrations are already there. So when you look at agentic and the work, or you just connect and integrate with all the applications. So you're going to work through a single source, and that's going to be probably an agentic AI interface. Now, so when the problem with tools, AI, and agentic is it has no context. It's brilliant, but it has zero context. Right. So
unless it's living in a sea of data,
the only way you can give it context is to feed it data. So back to my analogy before, it's like without it, it's a helpful stranger. With data, AI becomes like an informed coworker. Right. That's like that's another way to think about that.
Helpful stranger. Hey, can you tell me where's the cinema? Is it down? Down there. Turn right. Turn left.
Right.
Okay, thanks very much.
Well, no, the helpful stranger. It's worse than that, Mike. The helpful stranger goes, "Oh, hi, yeah, sure, I'd love to help you. I don't know."
Marvin, you've probably heard me speak about this. One of my favorite bodies of work is this thing called Mastery by George Leonard. It's all about the journey to mastery. And he talks about 4 characters that go on that journey, right? Masters who understand the nature of that journey. And it's going to be plateau, 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 S-curve, breakthrough, new plateau, 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 S-curve, breakthrough, new plateau. And they understand that they're going to spend most of their time on the plateau, so they better learn to love it and just keep, putting one foot in front of the other. And then George Leonard says, but 3 other characters show up to try to talk them off the path. Number 1, dabblers. Number 2, hackers. And number 3, obsessives. So I'm guessing that we are all seeing CEOs who are falling into at least those 2 camps. They're either dabbling or hacking or obsessing, and they're stuck, and they're wondering why they're not making progress. Or they're masters who understand the nature of this journey. This is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. If I start doing it the right way, I put one foot in front of the other, I will gradually make some progress, and the sort of snowball effect will kick in. And gradually I'll start to break through and get over the hump and feel like, wow, I'm really on my way. What are you seeing out there, Marvin, in terms of how you would characterize CEOs and where they're at on the journey?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. It was interesting. I saw a study. I'm sure you guys probably saw it too. A couple of months ago, MIT came out with a study that almost like 90% of these AI adoption, pilot projects are failing because, it's like a herd of horses, and it's just people are just panicked. Like, I just don't want to be left behind. The competition is doing, but they have no idea. And the second thing that I see a lot of CEOs trying to do is like, okay, our sales process, put AI into it, or our customer service, put AI into it. It's like, okay, what's the strategy here? Like, what are we doing? Where are we going? Like, so I think a lot of people are just dealing with trying to, because they're hearing this in this ether, they bring in their team and they're like, let's talk about AI. We need AI, and everything is AI. Put AI in the kitchen, put AI in the bathroom, and it's like, dude, what are we doing? So I think the ones who are succeeding are exactly what you said. The masters, Mike, they start with let's first of all, let's separate the myth from the fiction, right? AI is not about to replace everybody, overnight. It may one day, but it's not there yet, right? AI is still a baby learning how to crawl. I always tell my clients, it's like, the early days of the internet when AOL was, you've got mail, right? We're in the early stages of AI.
When the dial-up,
we're in the dial-up
phase.
stage. Let's not start getting rid of airline pilots and put AI in charge of the airline just quite yet, right? So that's the first step. The second step is, please, people, let's have a strategy. What are we doing? Like, where do we see AI really creating business value, right? Not just commoditizing, but creating business. Where does the value lie? Are we getting 2 to 3% lift here in, putting AI in operations, or are we really just creating something that is allowing us to lead in our category, right? So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is really, like you said, let's pilot this thing. What's the ROI? What are the KPIs that we're looking at to let us know that AI is actually working? Am I getting a 10% lift, a 20% lift, a 30% lift? That's what I need data to be able to tell me that where we're using AI and how we're using AI is actually something that's changing the game for us as a business. Otherwise, we're just throwing the spaghetti against the wall and hoping that it sticks, and then we're calling it carbonara. I'm seeing a lot of that.
Well, from a George Leonard perspective, one of the things in that book that I think is so important to mastery is he says we must surrender ourselves to the countless repetition of practice, right? And what so often we see is ideas, thoughts, intention, but not commitment to an everyday practice of doing that. And whether it's a skunk works, like we've talked about before, a pilot, a process that we're engaging it with, unless we do that, then a lot of times we don't have the capacity to practice. And what I have learned, because Marvin, I'm of the group, I'm playing with all kinds of stuff all the time, and I have agents all over the place. And one of the things I learned in the last couple of weeks is every time I ask my agent for something, and I have an agent named Kat Herder, and she works for me, and I chat with her. And but now she collects, if I ask something about how do I deal with this and she thinks it's related to me, she puts that into a separate database to remember me, right? Nice. To remember specific things about me. And now when I look at that database, there's like 500 things in there that are unique to me. But for me, that's coming from a daily practice of testing something, hitting walls, going, that doesn't work. How do I refine prompts? How do I make sure automations make sense? Where does data flow from? Where does it go to? How do I support that data? But the thing to me about mastery is you've got to practice mastery. You can't talk about it. You can't intend it. As Mike says, you can't tickle it. You got to tackle it. But tackling is a one-time thing. To me, it's every day. You're just doing the steps. You're doing the work every day.
You got to keep showing up. You got to never give up. You got to keep on keeping on. And elsewhere in the book, associated with that, as you said, the sort of the unending, relentless practice. He talks about waging war against instant gratification. That's what causes you to give up on relentless practice, because you're not seeing results. Correct. And if you're not getting that instant gratification, you start to think, what's the point? This doesn't work. I'll go and tickle something else instead.
Look, this to me is the guts of like the challenge for everyone listening. They if they don't recognize themselves in this, like they're not listening, right?
Are you dabbling, obsessing, hacking?
So the first thing for me is like AI must be in service of strategy, and this is a problem because it exposes strategy. And many companies, if we're honest, are not that good at strategy. So okay, that's a problem. And I think
even before AI.
AI. So here's the first, so this is a weakness, right? And I think that's really uncomfortable. And we know that like uncomfortable conversations like make leaders uncomfortable. It's like, okay, so there we are. The second thing for me is I love like that, the instant gratification piece is like, I think that's awesome because like this is to a point I think I made on a previous podcast, which is like leaders find confidence in knowing, right? This is an area where they have no knowledge. So they are, again, exposed, right? So that's what leads them to, I have to gain knowledge quickly, do stuff. Yeah. Marvin, go, deliver. They're like, because I have to know. And like to me, and Tom, I responded to a comment on your post this morning. I'm like, and I think the question was, what's the most important thing? I'm like, as a leader, you must commit to learning. So when you think about mastery, and the problem is they're all obsessed with knowing because like, I've been doing this for 25 years. I know lots of stuff. Yeah. Well, guess what? You don't know anything about this.
That's
right. So if you can't commit to learning, this is going to be a very hard journey for you.
Yeah. And back to George Leonard's mastery. I love what you said, by the way, Mark. You started off by saying something like, surely every listener is going to recognize themselves. That's what I often do. I put up 4 pictures, dabbler, obsessive, hacker, master, and with a little description, right, of each. And then I ask the audience, so do you recognize yourself? Which one of these is you? And by a show of hands, how many of you would recognize yourself as a master? A few people do, right? They're largely in denial, but never mind, right? And then all the hands go up for the other 3 characters. That have got them stuck. And by the way, the other thing I love this George Leonard work, Mastery. I absolutely love it. And indeed, like I said earlier, he says this, plateau, 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 S-curve, new plateau, S-curve, new plateau. So one of the other things he says is this. He says, you better learn to love the plateau because you're going to spend most of your time on it.
Yeah.
Of course, most people hate the plateau. Because there's no instant gratification.
Yeah.
So one thing I recognized in myself, and I'm sure we all do to some degree, is one of the reasons I love the plateau on anything, whether it's AI or launching a business or building a skill or, finding a new groove or something. One of the things I love about the plateau is that every step that I take, every hour, every day, every week, every month that I stick with it, and I just keep putting one foot in front of the other on that plateau, I know that around me, more and more people are checking out. So I'm in a smaller and smaller and smaller minority of people sticking with the game, which is only in a self-fulfilling way, only helping the next breakthrough S-curve come along, isn't it, right? Because there's fewer and fewer and fewer people doing it. Yeah. And so that's why I wanted to, hosting today, not least of all having Marvin here, but that's why I wanted to frame this up a little bit today through this mastery lens. Marvin, other thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, I think all of you are exactly on point. I think what we're seeing right now around AI is a stampede. And the stampede is, people running and, usually it's driven by fear. It's driven by competition. It's driven by so many other things other than, right, Mike, what you said, hey, there's something new going on here. Let me take the time to master this stuff. I'm not going to know it. Let me take the time to just let the stampede go. But, that focus on mastery is what's going to separate the wheat from the chaff in the coming years. Really, the companies that we are going to see who are going to be the next Amazons, quote unquote, of the AI world are taking the time to master this thing right now so that in the next, 3 to 5 years, we're going to start seeing some amazing companies, unicorns probably driven by, a few employees that are worldwide that are delivering amazing services because they've just turned this intelligence into a competitive advantage like nobody's business.
Yeah. I'm doing a big event in 3 weeks locally here, a CEO summit, C-suite summit, and I'm being very careful to be the gatekeeper. It's invitation only, and it's for mid-market companies, what I call big small companies, not small companies, not big companies, big small companies. Too small to be big and too big to be small. That kind of messy middle, and I'm holding a tight filter on that as the invitation only gatekeeper to make sure that people can come confident that they will have peers in the room. And of course, one of the classic questions I would ask people is, hey, calibrate me to the scale and scope of your business. I don't know, revenue, and of course, employees. And of course, that that question is going to become increasingly irrelevant, right? The number of employees that you have is going to be an increasingly poor representation of what scale and scope of a business that you have, because there's going to be this increasing separation. Those two things used to have a correlation, and that correlation is going to be increasingly broken and separated in a whole new paradigm.
Yeah.
So very true.
Well, Marvin, look, it's been phenomenal to have you here. You've really brought some fantastic new insights and perspectives. Everybody, if you haven't already, go over and check out Marvin Dejean on LinkedIn. We'll put his LinkedIn in the show notes here. He's got so much great stuff cooking on, not just locally, but regionally, nationally. We're going to get him plugged into our Ref Global community. And do some webinars and things. And so the way we land the plane here, Marvin, we'll go back around the room. How would you distill from everything we've talked about a suggested action that a CEO might take to try to get out of being dabbling and obsessing and hacking, and try to sort of just get on the train with other masters who are on this longer journey? We'll come to you last, Marvin. Tom, do you want to get us started? What action do you suggest?
Well, sometimes the action that I like to suggest is the action that I'm going to take, which is, instead of dabbling, I have to go down a path and I have to dig into another tool. And so I am deeply playing with Claude Code 2.0 inside the guts of my computer. So I put it into a folder in my computer, and I say go, and I tell it what I want it to do, and it goes. And I am learning through giving it access to specific folders on my computer and saying, go and rewrite this. So this week, one of the things I did was I had it rewrite my entire download inbox, which had 25,000 files in it. And I said, go fix this inbox for me.
I'll try to take my foot back out of my mouth from when I said earlier that Tom wasn't up there on the top shelf of speakers, or that's what he interpreted, or at least Mark did. Tom was a phenomenal speaker, and when he shows up, he shows stuff working. He's sharing his screen, he's showing an agentic AI application that the wheels are spinning, and this says done, and then it moves over here and says this is happening. So. And by the way, Marvin, the number one thing we remind listeners of all the time is this: and Tom does not know how to code. He has never written one line of software code in his life.
I believe it.
Mark, what would you throw on the table here?
I think I'm going to go back to the data challenge. And I'd say, if you are concerned about giving AI systems access to data, get over it. You've got to get over it, right? So now, of course, do it the right way. So get specialist help and make sure you do it the right way. But you have a dumb employee with one arm tied behind their back if you don't. So you've just got to get over this fear, and you've got to connect the data in your company to your AI systems.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Marvin, what would you offer our listeners, in particular, CEOs of those kinds of mid-market, big, small companies that you were mentioning are in your audiences these days? What would you recommend as at least one action that they can begin to try to join the mastery train with?
Yeah. So usually when I give recommendations to CEOs about, thinking about AI, I said, look, the first thing you need to shift is your mindset. What you're doing right now is you're trying to take AI as a technology play, and you're overlaying it on your current business model. I said you need to shift that mindset. You need to look at AI not as a technology play, but as the operating system for the entire organization. It's the thing that makes the organization work. So now, if you were to do that, strip, the organization of everything. Start on a blank state, right? Tabula rasa, and you're putting AI as the foundation of the business, how would that business work completely different than what you have today? So if you start putting AI in HR, AI in operations, AI in customer service, AI in sales, so you become an AI first company, not an AI after the fact, right? How do I bolt on AI? Use AI as a foundation, as the operating system of the business, then you completely shift your mindset and you see the business completely different from that perspective.
That's a beautiful, beautiful thing, Marvin. We were talking about that actually in the last episode, which was called AI native. I thought it was called AI naked, but that's going to be a future episode that we're going to do another time. Anyway,
well,
the one
OpenAI
before
just opened themselves to erotic content, so we got that now. So we're good.
And we were talking about, if you're not AI native, which of course most existing companies aren't, could you start a skunk works over there and truly start from an AI native, AI first, AI bottom up, AI engine kind of place. So that's really cool. One of the actions I'm going to take that we've already put in motion, and we'll get all of you plugged into it in some way, shape or form, at least virtually. And, if you're ever in town, or Mark is just up the road from me, in Ref San Diego, with our membership base of CEOs, as an added value experience over and above their monthly forums, we're going to start the Ref AI Incubator. Nice. And it'll be a combination of annual, quarterly, and monthly experiences that people can opt into, where they come to an AI lab, right, where we're going to be doing demos. We're going to be doing, hands-on, roll your sleeves up workshops. And we're going to be, getting people down and dirty and into the guts of actually doing stuff with AI and seeing case studies and use cases, real world things of, okay, this is what this company's done with this. That's what that company's done with that. So we're really excited about getting out of this talk and into the walk with a life support system of a sort of AI incubator in our community in San Diego. So there we have it, everybody. Another episode of the Prompt and Circumstance podcast, landing the plane here. We're so grateful to you, Marvin Dejean, for joining us today. Thank you so much. We look forward to having you as a friend of the podcast going forwards. Maybe come back once in a while and share more stuff. We'll get you plugged into some of these other exciting things that we're going to do. And we know that you're doing exciting things too. So please keep us apprised of all of that so we can share that with our listeners. Our James Bond, Ryan Neiman, no doubt will be back with us next time, and he'll share whatever he can from his secret mission. And we look forward to having you there. If you want to know more about us, go to promptandcircumstancepodcast.com, and we look forward to having you with us for the next episode. Thanks very much, everybody.
Happy Halloween!
That's a wrap for this episode of Prompt and Circumstance. Thanks for hanging out with these four at the roundtable today. If you liked what you heard, hit subscribe wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. And if you've got a thought, question, or AI hot take, send it our way. Find the bios for Mike, Ryan, Mark, and Tom, as well as show notes and more at the podcast website, promptandcircumstancepodcast.com. Until next time, keep playing, keep curious, and we'll see you in the next episode.